my interest became great because I faced so much discrimination when I was growing up in the East End. And what I found is when you teach somebody, because discrimination is really ignorance, it's not knowing. So my idea was to teach not only blacks, who I find a lot of them don't have a clue as to where they came from or who, or they just don't know, as well as other communities, they're not aware either. They see the center, but they don't know all the history behind it, or they didn't, they could never imagine at one time this whole area was basically black people. It's hard to envision because it's so, well, one of the things they've done, they've gentrified it, so you have a lot of people that have a few more coins coming into the community. And the people that were here have moved to the suburbs or moved away completely. So it would help students, it would help everyone, I think, just to come and learn the history, to see, to become a part, to feel it, which is also very much a part of Montreal's history. Anyone who came from anywhere, a black person, whether they came from the United States or the Caribbean, they ended up at the center. It was sort of a welcoming place for everyone. Their parties were held there, meetings. As the years went on, they had camps for the children. There was day nurseries. There's a gym built on the top floor. It's not an official size gym, but nonetheless there's a not really a gym, a basketball court. And it was to, help keep the young people off the streets and that.
It was a very active community center, so you could go there from the time you were about 3 years old in nursery school, and you'd still be going there when you're 82 years old. They had activities for everybody, all different age levels. It was a social service center, so people went there for all kinds of needs. They had Christmas activities, they had after-school activities, they had lunch programs. And these were activities that weren't just open to blacks in the neighborhood. They were open to all residents that wanted to belong to the NCC. At one time, half the board of the NCC was white, and we shared the facilities with the Ivory settlement that was there as well. So it really was a community center. It became far more focused as I grew older. It became far more focused with the emergence or the strengthening of black power and certainly more black consciousness in the community as the youth began to assert themselves. And you began to see a much stronger emphasis on black culture and actually the learning of it.
I've seen the NCC. I was part of the NCC at the time when it was still open. I was part of, actually, there was exactly what you're doing a bit today. There was one of the workshops and one of the ateliers was around interviewing, around filming and so on. So, and I was very much interested in that. So I was part of that particular workshop at the time. And I remember we even had, I don't know, was it one of Concordia's auditoriums, we had the candidate at the time, the Democratic candidate, Jesse Jackson, and we of the NCC went down to film him and everything, and we were actually presented with awards for finishing up that program out of the NCC.
For most people, what the NCC gave them was a sense of grounding. It helped to ground them in a world perspective. At that time, blacks were far more focused on what was going on outside of the boundaries of Canada. We were looking at every night. I mean, you turned on your TV every night and you saw some incident in Alabama or Georgia or Mississippi, or, you know, something going on with the civil rights. Things were happening in Africa. We had marches for African Liberation Day. We had anti-apartheid movement that was being supported. We had the National Black Coalition in Canada. We had a lot of things where our eyes were outside the borders of Canada, or certainly outside of our province, and we were looking at sort of the rise of black, for lack of a better word, black power or black strength, and the vision of black greatness coming back from Africa. So when, you know, you went to the Negro Community Centre, that's what you learned, who the African kings were, the African queens, the great military was, the great culture of Africa, that kind of thing, and sort of reinforced, and things didn't happen in a vacuum. You realize it was part of a continuum of the black presence. You know, I mean, humanity started in Africa, and we always felt like there would be a time when we would go back to the greatness that was Africa. And so learning about those kinds of things was really, for me anyway, it was very much a grounding experience.
Due to different circumstances, it closed down, all the programs stopped. So it's been closed for about 20 years. And since 2004, personally, I've been trying to have it open with a group of other people. There were other attempts in the past, but it's been a difficult task to have it reopened. I think that having it open would be so beneficial to everyone, because in our new our revitalization, we plan to be inclusive, which we always have been, but be more forward, more open, you know, that it's in certain inclusivity for everyone.
We should be very upset. We need to be very upset, and we need to put our energies and our structure our ideas in a way where we can get this thing functionalized in an operation, operantis modem. We need to really go there. We need to really because yes, we're upset. Yes, we're saddened. Yes, it's taken a long time, and every winter that goes by, it doesn't help. We've been lucky, you know, in terms that the winters haven't been that hard, but nevertheless, we know that the place would need to be practically, well, I don't know how, the plumbery needs to go. It's plumbery from the 30s and 40s, that I know. But the structure is very solid.
If people don't know where they come from, and they don't know how they got there, then it's very difficult for them to really understand the structures and the barriers that are out there, and to understand ways that worked and didn't work to change the system. I think the youth today work, or they operate in a vacuum. They really don't know. It's sort of like information explosion, but not knowledge explosion. So you have a lot of different facts, but it's not really put together in a comprehensive fashion that these kids can really begin to understand the threads of history and how it affects them today. Most Canadians anyway are very ahistorical. We don't know our history, and certainly most of us have grown up with myths about blacks and about Canada's role with blacks. So it's not just the black children out there that are confused or lacking their own awareness. It really is something that I think is it's endemic to being, I guess, Canadian, and I think that's something that the community needs to work at trying to solve. And resurrecting the NCC, I think, most people would see that as a step forward in that direction.